Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Season 14, Episode 35, overall 750 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by our friends at Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership, located at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out their website, barrycullen.com, for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, along with their great selection of all-electric vehicles known as EVs, as well as Cadillac vehicles and pickup trucks as well. You can call the dealership 519-824-0210. Tell them Chris Palme sent you, or you can email them at info@barrycullen.com. Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership has been family run and operated here in the city of Guelph since 1969. A fun fact about the late Barry Cullen, he played in the National Hockey League with a couple teams, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he actually played 1 year with the Detroit Red Wings. The late Barry Cullen played the 59-60 season with the Detroit Red Wings, 65 games, 4 goals, 9 assists, 13 points, 23 minutes in penalty minutes, and he actually played in 4 games with the Red Wings in the 59-60 playoffs as well. So a little Red Wing connection with Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership, a proud sponsor of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. I hope everyone is doing well on this busy sports night, Thursday, August 13th, 2026. And I'm excited to have my guest on today. A little mix up here, but we're happy to have him on tonight. This is his 6th appearance on our show, dating back to 2021. He was a hockey writer with US Today for 34 years. He's now a columnist with Detroit Hockey Now, and he's a beat reporter covering the Detroit Red Wings. We're going to bring on longtime hockey writer Kevin Ellen.
Hi there.
Good evening, Kevin. How are you doing?
Doing great, thanks. Happy to be here.
And hey, at least the Tigers are starting to play better baseball now.
Yeah, really, you know, when they got off to that horrid start in May, I think a lot of people hurt themselves jumping off the bandwagon. But now I think there's room for everybody. They're playing well. The rest of the team has kind of matched the performance level of the starting pitching. And, you know, the starting pitching has been pretty consistent throughout the season, no matter who they had out there. And now all of a sudden they're getting, you know, big hits from a lot of different players. And the relief pitching has been okay. Still probably needs a little bit of work. But I think if you're living in Detroit, you feel a lot better about the Detroit Tigers than you do about your Red Wings.
The Red Wings are like the Tigers a little bit too, because the Red Wings the last couple of years have had stretches where they've played really good hockey, and everybody, including myself, thought they were going to be in the playoffs. And then they have like a bad March or bad February or March, and they ended up missing the playoffs. But Kevin, one thing too, the Red Wings did have 92 points last year, and back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, if you fired a coach or you fired a GM or a president after a 92-point season, you'd be called crazy. I guess times have changed.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I do think, you know, it's the body of work and, 10 consecutive seasons out of the playoffs. And, you know, I mean, it's, unless you're young, you haven't forgotten that this team made the playoffs consecutively for 25 straight years, not that long ago. And, now all of a sudden, the legend that was your general manager is gone, your captain wants to be traded. Patrick Kane, who it seemed like fell in love with Detroit after he moved here, has said, no mas, I'm going back to Chicago. So, all of a sudden there's a lot of negativity about this team and their inability this summer to land goal scoring help, makes it, even if they convince Dylan Larkin to stay, it's still going to be tricky to have enough goals to be a playoff contender.
Do you feel in their 100-year history this is the darkest time for the Red Wings in their period, even over the late 70s and early 80s?
No, I don't. Because the fan base, I lived through the Dead Wings period as a fan. I was a teenager, and what marked that era was just apathy of the fan base, and the fan base today is angry. No matter what we write these days, fans don't want to hear about it because they're just angry. I wrote a piece about how difficult it's going to be for the power play without Kane, without Dylan Larkin, pointing out, that Dylan Larkin was part of 46% of their power play goals and for the last 2 seasons. And, Patrick Kane, of course, was in the high 20s and they're going to be gone. But the fan base really just didn't want to read that story. They, tell me something I don't know is basic their reaction. So, and, if this team was a normal season, they would have devoured that information, wanting to know how the GM and demanding to know how the GM is going to fix it. So I think that's the difference. The fans still care enough to be angry as opposed to the 70s when they really just didn't care anymore about the team in Detroit.
Do you see this could happen starting this year?
No,
Possibly fan base, no,
I don't think so. I mean, it's the modern world. It's still an incredible arena that you go to. The fan base, while it probably has dwindled some, it's still, there's a lot of people that show up to watch hockey at Little Caesars Arena. So I don't think this season they're in danger. In fact, you have some fans that believe that, maybe it would be okay if they take a step backwards and suddenly found themselves in a position to draft a center iceman.
Kevin, overall assessment on Steve Yzerman's time as president and GM from 2019 to 2026.
Well, I mean, I think ultimately, he didn't make the playoffs. And, I don't think the fans really understood how long, when you're trying to win through the draft in today's game with a 32-team league, I think it's impossible. I really do. I just don't think when you see the draft statistics, and I think over the last decade, everyone's taken deep dives into it, and then you suddenly realize that, the teams are only pulling on average 1.9 players out of each draft class that are actually going to play with the team. So, after 6 years, you should only have 12 guys by the law of average that will make your team and play, any kind of role. So it's hard to do that. I think the mistake that Yzerman made is I think the model he should have probably embraced is, kind of a cross between, what the Maple Leafs were trying to do when, with their draft and what the Vegas Golden Knights and the Florida Panthers do when they take their draft picks and they find other ways to make them valuable. Like, I jokingly said to George McPhee, the president of the director of hockey operations for the Golden Knights, that, why do you guys hate the draft? I was just joking. He said, well, we don't hate the draft as much as we just see it differently. We think, rather than roll your dice and buy a lottery ticket on getting a player and knowing that there's only, after the first 15 picks in the first round, only a 50-50 chance you'll even get a player that will play in the league. We feel let's utilize those picks and trade them and get, a better value by getting a veteran player. And I think, looking back, maybe that's where Yzerman, went wrong. He's been collecting prospects, but, he didn't have lottery luck. So, he didn't get any of those top 3 or 4 picks that, yield, superstar players. And, he's got some very good players. I mean, I think everyone's pretty happy with Moritz Seider and, Lucas Raymond and Simon Edmondson, but it's not the same as getting a Celebrini or a Bedard. And in that regard, maybe he should have, instead of collecting second round picks, parentheses, 34% chance of getting a player with a second round pick, maybe he should have been moving those draft picks to get players that, were already proven scorers or proven, two-way performers.
Kevin, why do you think they waited to July 15th? Because from my impression, Steve planned on being back next year. So do you find the timing of this odd after especially Dylan Larkin saying, I want out?
Well, yeah. And, if we can quote Gibbs on NCIS, there's no such thing as a coincidence that, the Dylan Larkin situation. I think the Red Wings expected Steve Yzerman to be back. I think Steve Yzerman expected to be back. You don't usually let a guy go through the draft and free agency and then say, oh, by the way, we're removing you. I think something happened, and we're all guessing because, it may not ever come out. But, the best guess, and, I've talked this with people who are, kind of close to the situation, and they don't know either. But the best guess is there is a disagreement between Steve Yzerman and Chris Ilitch about the Dylan Larkin situation. And it may simply have ended with Yzerman, telling Chris Ilitch how he felt about whatever Ilitch's position was. So whatever reason, that he's out and they're starting over. But, it puts him in a bad spot, and I'm going to write this for tomorrow morning. But, here you have, and first of all, the oddness also, not only of the timing, but, how it, kind of came out. Yeah, Yzerman's moving upstairs. He'll be part of the day-to-day operations for now while we're looking for a new. No, he's not. He's not at all. It's Horkoff who's running the day-to-day right now. But he can't make trades, and he certainly can't sign, Simon Edmondson to a new deal. So as of Monday, we're a month out from the start of training camp. So there is some process, pressure here on the organization to get going here. Like, they've wasted some time. There's no doubt. The fact that we didn't hear any names coming out, we knew something like it hadn't started. And then they hired a law firm to sift through the resumes and to come up with a list for them. And I thought this week we might hear, this team has given permission to talk to so-and-so. We would hear this candidate saying, yeah, I am going to interview with the Red Wings. But we have not heard that. So, what's happening here? Are they going to put together the list first? Then going in, is it going to be kind of like the Toronto Maple Leafs? They hired the same group and hired John Chaika, and then they went and got a coach. They interviewed 25 people. Now, they didn't interview 25 people for the GM job, but, it takes time to get through all that. So I think there's some worry here that because I think the expectation is the new guy is going to go and sit in Dylan Larkin's living room and talk to him about, what his issues are and what, if anything, can be done to convince him to stay. Because, they can't afford to lose a 34 goal scorer, and, people have mixed feelings about what a player that Larkin is. But I can tell you there are only three centers active in the NHL today that have scored 30 or more goals for the last 5 consecutive seasons. The first two are guys named Leon Draisaitl and McKinnon, and the third is Dylan Larkin. So say what you want, whether he's a 1C or a 2C, but he has been productive, and he is a goal scorer. And the Red Wings were 22nd in scoring last year. If they lose Larkin, and obviously Kane is gone and Van Riemsdyk is also gone, that would be 65 goals lost off a team that was 22nd in the league. They've gained 25 in Arvidsson. Now, why that's important is this, and it never gets talked about. But we all know, because we watch a lot of playoff hockey, that you need good defense and good goaltending to win during the playoffs. But to get in the playoffs, historically, traditionally, you have to score a lot of goals. Last year, the top 12 scoring teams in the National Hockey League all made the playoffs. Actually, 14. The top 14 teams made the NHL playoffs. So, and then there were two kind of outliers that got in. The LA Kings, who was not, they were not a high scoring team. And the year before, it was very similar. So you got to score goals. So, if I looked at that last, and I did, like, what's the sort of bottom line on goals? It's 265. Well, when you take last year's Red Wings total at 239, so they were already about 26 goals short to begin with. Now they've lost another, 30. They're essentially 65 goals short of being in the area that you probably need to in order to make the playoffs. So it's still critical that they've got to try somehow before the start of the season to get some more goals, with or without getting Larkin to stay. So I think it's imperative that they start to pick up the pace to hire a general manager and see if he can shake a few trees. And, maybe if he can't convince Larkin to stay, maybe he can get a third team involved to perhaps give a player up, and they take Minnesota's draft picks, and maybe Detroit could get some scoring that way. But the new guy's going to have to come in, and he's got his work cut out for him.
Kevin, I wanted to ask you this too. Dylan Larkin being a Michigan guy, let's say the Red Wings keep him. How do you sell that to the fan base, especially being a captain too?
Well, I've been a sports writer 50 years, and what I know for sure, without fear of contradiction, is America loves the redemption story. And there have been many athletes that have had situations that were far uglier than Dylan Larkin wanting to leave the Detroit Red Wings because, they're not strong enough and not competing enough for them. So, I believe that, will there be some boos? Probably. Would they give him the Fedorov treatment and boo each time that he touches the puck? Maybe. But if he scores in the first 10 games a bunch of goals and Detroit wins 6 of them, they'll come around. They'll forgive him. We'll move on. Like I don't think that it's going to be a lifelong hatred of Dylan Larkin. I mean, let's face it, he's a nice guy. I mean, everybody kind of knows he's a nice guy. So
the situation with him and Steve must have gotten to that point where he was just, I've had enough. That must have been the breaking point with Steve.
Yeah, for sure. And I bet he's not the only guy that felt that way. I bet there are guys on there. I mean, Moritz Seider is not going to say anything, or Lucas Raymond, but I'm sure they don't love what's been happening lately. They didn't like that they've missed the playoffs. They wish that, there was a way that Steve Yzerman could have got, more help for the offense. So, I mean, I think that he won't have any problem at all. I mean, zero, I think, in the dressing room. I think they get it, that this is, this is his livelihood. This is a business. He just, we all in our everyday lives, we have the choice to move on and go elsewhere. In pro sports, you don't. You've got to do things like what Dylan Larkin is doing if you want to move along sometimes.
One of the guys that is kind of forgotten about in all this is Todd McClellan and the coaching staff, because you're bringing in a new GM and president. Most of the times they want to bring their own guys in, so they're kind of in limbo right now too.
For sure. I mean, it's a great point. And the only thing I would say is GMs like to have that one firing in their back pocket, because, if you bring your own guy in now and it doesn't work out, then you got to fire him. You don't have one in the bank, firing then, because you used it right away. So, you know, if he waits a year and sees where this team is at, and then if he wants to bring in this guy, that he can just always say, well, Todd McClellan wasn't my guy. So, I don't, Tom McClellan's a good coach anyway, and I think everybody understands that around the league. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe the guy will have a coach that he wants to bring in, but I think Todd McClellan seems pretty safe, or as safe as you can be.
Do you see Steve Yzerman staying with the franchise, or do you see him stepping away and maybe looking for other opportunities around the National Hockey League in the future?
Well, this is only a guess, but I don't see Steve wanting to leave hockey. I don't see him having any role moving forward in hockey operations here in Detroit. So I would guess that we will see him working with Pat Verbeek in Anaheim, or Jim Nill in Dallas, or Don Waddell or in Columbus, or Doug Armstrong. I mean, these are all guys he knows well. These are all guys that respect what Steve Yzerman brings and his opinions on things. I mean, Pat Verbeek is a very close friend, so that would seem to make a lot of sense. And I do think Pat would value having someone like him around as a sounding board. So I think he will go elsewhere. He loves hockey. Like, he wants to. I think he'll be content to go around and look at players and give his thoughts on potential trades and things of that nature. So, I think if Steve, if there hadn't been a cascading effect, like, he really couldn't. His name just wasn't good enough. It should have been, but it wasn't, to get free agents to come in, because the team just wasn't good enough. Like, that's a big thing. Like, it's hard to know who's going to win the cup, but you don't want to go to a team that continues not to make the playoffs, because then you realize you have no chance right out of the gate. So, and I think he won over Patrick Kane. I think Patrick Kane liked being here, but one of the reasons he liked being here was Dylan Larkin. So, it was hard. So I just don't see Steve doing. What would he do if he's not doing hockey? I think he will end up somewhere.
How is his relationship going to be with, like, in the Detroit media and the fan base? Do you think the fans in a couple of years from now will just kind of forget about the 7 years as GM?
Well, I mean, again, that's another great question, Chris. And I don't think we have the perfect answer. I would guess they will forget that. I mean, I thought, what happened with Sergei Fedorov and, the friction between him and the Ilitch family, the sense of betrayal that they felt, when he left. You would have thought if anything would have been the equivalent of a lifetime ban, it would have been that. But, we were, most of us in the media were there at Sergei Fedorov's number retirement, and there was a lot of love there, including from Steve Yzerman. And, there was always tension between those two players when they were together. And, the fact that, Fedorov had to sort of played a role in that. Yet, on that night and continuing moving forward, I mean, all was forgotten about that. So I do think that, he's on the Red Wings Mount Rushmore with, Nick Lidstrom and Gordie Howe. So I think ultimately they're going to remember what a hero he was on the ice, and that he won his last cup playing on one leg, and that he was an incredible goal scorer. Other than Mario Lemieux, people forgot, because he was such a warrior at the end, that when he came into the league, like, there was no one better other than Mario on a breakaway than Steve Yzerman. Like, he was a just dynamic player. And I think, the older generation certainly remembers that. And the middle-aged people remember what a warrior he was, and the shot blocking and the years as a captain. So I think his legacy will overcome his poor performance in the GM chair.
Kevin, I want to ask you this too. A couple of Red Wings. We've mentioned Jim Nail and Brendan Shanahan. Do you see Brendan Shanahan getting a chance to get interviewed by the Red Wings for this position?
Yeah, I mean, it seems possible, but it depends on. I think the reporting has been accurate that they would like to get more of a analytics oriented GM. So, the only way that Shanahan would be involved in that is if it was going to, and they're not committed to a 1 or a 2 person system. Like if you look around the league where, so if they go with a 2 person, could he be a director of hockey ops and then the analytics guy, being sort of there, and Shanahan's supposed to, I mean, that seems possible. I don't know though, if that's the way they're going to go. I mean, it seems more likely to me, and again, I'm just reading the tea leaves here, that they would be interested in the Tigers GM Jeff Greenberg, who had time with the Chicago Blackhawks as perhaps the overseer, maybe with both teams, and then having an analytics guy come in under that. Now, again, I don't think they're married to that particular idea, but I think it's a possibility.
Hey, Kevin, if you got a couple more minutes, I wanted to ask you about the goaltending situation as well. Why do you think Sebastian Cossa just never jumped to the Detroit level, and they moved him to Utah, I believe?
Yeah. Well, this is my take on it. It's really the oldest story in all of professional sports. He got beat out. Sebastian Cossa had a good season. He really did. Detroit Hockey Now saw him play, especially early in the season. He had good numbers. It was pretty clear he had made strides. He was still viewed as a goalie in waiting. But a funny thing happened on the way to the Forum. And that is Michael Postava showed he was more consistent. He was more poised. He had better numbers. And he was just a better goalie. And I think at the end, when Cossa sensed to what was happening, I think he was not happy with all that. But I don't think they hated Sebastian Cossa. I just think, that Postava, and to be honest, when I saw Postava late, he was better. He just was a better goalie. And, they're 9 months apart. Like, that's the other thing, too. Someone says, well, he was a first-round pick. Well, they're just 9 months apart. And Postava has already won a championship at the Czech League. Now, again, that's not the NHL. But, he knows a little bit about how to win in multiple series playoffs. So I think that was in his favor. And, he had better numbers. If you look at his career, Postava has had a good save percentage everywhere he's been. And he just looks like he was a special player. And when he won the championship and he was like 22 years old, when you do the translation, it's a rough translation, but they were comparing him to a young Dominik Hasek. So I think it's a little bit unfair to sort of cast that the Red Wings just hated Cossa. They really didn't. They just liked Postava better, and they thought they could get the first round pick back. And because they had lost their pick for Justin Falk, which they felt like they needed to do because they were trying to make the playoffs, they were happy to get that, particularly when Hurlburt, who has a reputation for being a pretty gifted scorer, was available. So it was sort of the perfect storm as well. And the ability to get the first round pick, the fact they liked Postava better, the fact that Cossa wasn't as good later in the season. So it all kind of weighed in. And, there always was a little bit of concern that Cossa, who was 6'6", it was a little bit leaky, that when you got a goal against Postava, you beat him. Nothing was leaking through. It didn't go off his stick, that kind of thing. Where with Kosa, it would squeeze between his arm and his body, and that kind of thing. So it was just a lot of different factors. And let me just give you one stat that I wrote about a lot, but it's a significant one, and that is in 33 games last year in the American Hockey League, Postava gave up more than 3 goals only once.
Wow.
That's a pretty significant stat as well. So saying all that, and this is a criticism of Yzerman that I think is fair. Postava has never been up in an NHL game. Kosa was only up 45 minutes in the NHL. So, they didn't really know whether Postava is ready or not. And because of that, they had to go out and bring in Tarasov. So now Postava, there was some talk about maybe he would compete for that job, but he's not going to be given a real chance in a shortened training camp. It's going to be Tarasov. But Postava is definitely number 3. So if there's a guy hurt, Postava should be up. And, one of the things I say when you hire this new general manager, one of the things that should be a priority is he's got to change the way the organization handles prospects. You can't have guys like Trailmix and Tormisto and Lombardi be gone to other organizations already and never having seen them play at the NHL level. Like, I think they deserved a game or two, all 3 of those guys. Tormisto had a tremendous season. Trailmix played really, really well. Now, do I think they're NHL players? Nah, I don't know. Probably not. But it would be nice to have seen them at the NHL level. And plus, I think what happened to them is discouraging for people who might want to join this organization. You want to believe you're going to get a shot. And Trailmix went out and said right before he signed with the Oilers that he didn't feel he got any kind of chance to play with the Red Wings. And that's an indictment. When the players don't feel that you're not even considering them, then why bother to sign them? So with all that in mind, I think that was a fair criticism. They've got to change how they approach that. William Wallander is another example. Like, they expect him to compete for a job this year, but again, they haven't seen him at the NHL level. They never brought him up. Played 3 years in the minors, didn't play a minute in the NHL, and now he's no longer waiver exempt. So he's got to make the team, or I think he's likely to be picked up. I think a lot of teams around the league believe he can play at the NHL level. They thought that last year.
Hey, Kevin, and you explained it well about what Koza was left. Maybe a change of scenery might do something to Koza too. Maybe it will be good for him to have a fresh start in Utah.
For sure. Yeah, I think so. Like, he's still a quality prospect. He really is. He's a big goalie, and his numbers were really good last year. He got better each year. He's works out in the weight room. There's a lot to like about him, and he may do well. We'll have to see. But I still don't think, even if he does well, I don't think the Red Wings will feel bad about it, because I think they really, really like Hurlburt, and who'll be at the University of Michigan as a scorer. And I think they feel good. They have a stable of goaltenders now that's, with Augustine, like as good as Postava was, most people think Augustine will be better. So we'll see what happens.
Kevin, quickly, just overall assessment of the Red Wings organization heading into the season. And in your opinion, what is their biggest need for this team?
Well, they've got to get a center, teams just don't give them up. So, they're going to have to try to get an older center. Like, maybe they should have considered last year, even though Stamkos has primarily played wing, he was a center. Maybe they should have made an effort to try to get, the aging Stamkos, who had an okay year, a good year last year for Nashville. I mean, they just really need another center. Imagine how that changes everything. If you could get someone, like a Stamkos or just an older center who's been around the block, and then he plays the number one, and then Cobb, who played okay last year. I mean, he's not a top six forward, but I think if you asked to bring Cat and Kane, they would say they were comfortable with him and they thought he added something because he's a defensive player. Now Casper goes down. He's still a young man. He plays on the third line. Maybe he plays with Mazer and Michael Brandt-Stig-Nygaard, and you got three players there that might have 150 hits apiece. You might have a line that will produce 500 hits in the season, and then who knows? Maybe all of a sudden Casper picks his game up and he's more like the 19 goal scorer he was in his first year. And not what was he last year? 6 goals that he scored last year, or whatever it was. But anyway, so if they could somehow pull a rabbit out of their hat and get some sort of, even if it's an aging center who's not in his prime anymore, they really need to get someone to that change the ranking of their centers.
Kevin, I know some of the fan base won't agree with me on this, but I think the Red Wings are still better off now than they were before Yzerman took over in 2019. He did do some positive things.
Well, I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, I think whoever takes this team over is taking over a better team than Yzerman inherited from Ken Holland. I mean, he's leaving them Moritz Seider, who recently was voted by the NHL Network as a top 10 defenseman in the league. Simon Edvinsson, he's probably going to be a $9.5 million defenseman. He's a top pairing guy. He's a giant player on the ice. He keeps getting better. He's a risk taker. He's got an offensive side to him. And they've got DeBrincat. All they got to do, I think DeBrincat is inclined to stay as long as they don't disrespect him. And it seems pretty obvious that, when Dylan Larkin was looking for his contract, most of us looked around and looked at the guys that had signed contracts, Roop Hintz and Barzal and those guys, and it was pretty easy to slot where Larkin belonged based on production. And he pretty much got exactly what we all said he was going to get because it was just a slotting. Well, I'm slotting Alex DeBrincat, and I look and see that Jason Robertson has 3 40-goal seasons. Kyle Connor has 3 40-goal seasons. Both of those players are earning $12 million a year. And guess what? Alex DeBrincat has 3 40-goal seasons, including one last year. What should he be earning? It seems pretty obvious to me. So if you're willing to give him $12 million, I think he'll sign. I think he likes it here. He's a family guy. His family's here. His wife's family is here. He knows the guys on the team, and he's happy with it. I think he's easy to sign. Well, that's a pretty good core of players, just in that small group. And I like some of these guys coming up. I'm bullish on Brandt-Stig-Nygaard. I think he offers, a physical play. I watched him closely in the playoffs, 8 points, 8 games, hit everything in sight. I think Yzerman was right at the end of the season. They have to be tougher to play against. I think Mazer is also a feisty, prickly player who's got a little bit of offense as well. I think if he can stay healthy, and that's a pretty big if, but if he can, I think he can contribute as well. And let's not give up quite yet on Danielson. Danielson is a smart player. And, he's not an 80-point guy or a 90-point guy. But what if he's a 60-point guy or a 50 to 60-point guy? I think he can help a lot. He has some skill, to be sure, and he's a smart player. So he won't hurt you defensively. So if he's good enough that maybe a strong defensive player who gets 50 to 60 points might be better than an 80-point guy who never plays defense.
Hey, Kevin, as we wrap the show up in a couple of minutes, I just wanted to get your quick thoughts on the retirement of Paul Woods. And have they announced who Ken Cowell's new radio analyst will be heading into the season yet?
No, they really haven't. And it'd be interesting, when they try maybe go in-house and make Larry Murphy the guy. I just don't know what they'll do. It's sad. It's sad for me because I remember Woodsy as a player. I was again during my fandom period, and it was fun when they brought him in and got him from Montreal. We Bob Duff and I sat with Woodsy usually before the games. He's a passionate hockey aficionado, and I loved talking to him. And I remember him. They used to fly all over the ice. He was a quick, forward, and he played hard. And I think fans, he was quite comfortable. The fan base was quite comfortable with him behind the mic with Ken Cal. And I don't like what's happening in radio. We're seeing, there are now 6 teams that don't have separate, radio teams, and they're just going with simulcast with their TV. And, if you ever listen to a game on the radio, it's completely different. So, there's more description and so forth.
And by the way, Joel Bowen, his son worked for the Toronto Argonauts, Sean, and I do some coverage from the Argonauts too. He said his dad is happy to retire after 44 years. But I think part of the reason was he was getting tired of calling games from a studio because the Maple Leafs haven't allowed Joe and Jim Ralph for a number of years now to go on the road with the team. They want him to do the road games from a studio in Toronto. So I think that might have sped up Joe's retirement a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's a lot of that going on. I think there's a sense that, the game, the importance of radio isn't what it once was, and it's hard to measure how many people are listening. And do people ever sit down and just listen to a game, or do they only catch snippets when they have to run out to get milk from the grocery store?
I'm still a radio guy, and I grew up in the 70s here listening to Bruce Martin and Sid Abel and Joel Bowen and Rick Jenneret in Buffalo, Ted Darling. Well, Ted was on TV, but just those legendary voices on the radio, and you identified with those teams from those voices.
For sure. I mean, Ken Cal's an institution now. He's been around so long. So
31st season tying Bruce Martin.
Well, yeah.
That's hard to believe.
Well, and imagine the pressure he had following Bruce Martin, but, he showed that he could live up to that pressure.
Finally, Kevin, can you just quickly tell us about your latest article in Detroit Hockey Now? And do you have any plans for another book in the future?
I thought I was probably done writing books because as many people, maybe a lot of people don't know that, but it's hard to make money writing books now because not as many people read as they used to. And the sports books are just not as lucrative as, it's not a novel or anything like that. So I kind of thought maybe I'd written 25 of them, and I thought I did one with Bertie Nichols a couple of years ago. I thought that might be my last, but I'm thinking about some possibilities. I have a Michigan football book in mind that I may do. So I think there's some others, and Mike Emmerich has talked to me about doing another book with him on minor league hockey. So I think there's a possibility that I may do another, but nothing is in stone yet of exactly what I'm going to do. And the story I'm going to do tomorrow is just about that the fan base shouldn't undersell the importance of, like, for the Red Wings need to pick up the pace on hiring the general manager. Like, there's too much that needs to be done, including having given this new guy some time to try to make some significant changes. He's got to have time. Like, if he wants to trade Larkin, if Larkin doesn't want to come back, if he can't talk him into staying, He's got to be. The only way I think this trade's going to happen is if they involve a third team. The Minnesota doesn't have anyone they're willing to give up that the Red Wings will want, and they cannot afford to take, a first round pick and 2 mid-level prospects. Like, that just doesn't do it. And then 1 player off the roster who just, is a guy that will contribute but not be a significant contributor. So I think they've got to figure out a way to do that. There's been a lot of suggestion that perhaps Pedersen and Vancouver could be a player that maybe they can work. Now, that never would have happened if Steve Yzerman would have been general manager. He's not a Steve Yzerman type of player. That never happened. But who knows? I don't know who they're going to take in GM, so I don't know whether that would work out. But I do think, the possibility of maybe bringing in a third team, and they would take the draft picks and the prospects, and Detroit would get a proven, maybe older player making, money that another team can't afford. So I think it's important, and I'll be writing that for tomorrow morning on, and then getting Edmondson signed. Yeah, you can't wait till the last minute. And training camp, training camp's only going to be 3 days plus the preseason, half the size now. I mean, we're going to an 84 game schedule. They gotta be set. They gotta be ready to go. I mean, it's going to be hard enough as it is without, Edmondson showing up, on the day of training camp starting and having to get a physical and, all that kind of stuff. So the new guy needs to have some time to get this all kind of worked out.
A lot of work to do. And with Larkin, he's still under contract. So if they can't get what they want for him and he doesn't want to play in Detroit, is there a possibility he could sit out?
No chance. Nobody, he's not going to walk away from $8.7 million. I see fans suggesting that's a possibility. And I think there's zero chance of that. Let's not forget the Yashin case years ago where, he just thought that he was burning the contract. And at the end, the courts ruled no. If you don't show up, then you still owe them that year. And, you don't want to go through that if you're, you want to set out the year and then find out, okay, well, now you still have 5 years with with the Red Wings. So I don't see that. He'll have to come back and, will it be uncomfortable? But I don't think for long. I think if he's willing to come back, I think fans will, forgive him. And, there's not everybody out there is cussing at him. There's some people that think he's glad that they're glad he stood up to Steve Yzerman.
He might want to get a PR guy too. If he does come back to the Red Wings, he might want to hire a PR person too to kind of try to smooth things over. But you're right, Kevin. If he performs, scores goals, and the team wins some games, eventually I think the fans will kind of move on from this. I think you're right about that.
Yeah. Well, we'll see though. I mean, maybe he's stubborn and he's going to say, "Yeah, no, trade me." So
we'll find out.
He's still going to show up.
And then finally, Kevin, where can our audience follow you on social media and Detroit Hockey Now?
On Twitter by Kevin Allen, and then Detroit Hockey Now Facebook as well. Detroit Hockey Now Facebook. So
I look forward to your next article. And this next month, Kevin, is going to be very interested in terms of who the Red Wings hire and how he goes about Larkin and Edmondson and trying to get this team ready for training camp, which isn't far away.
No, you're absolutely right, Chris.
Well, Kevin, I want to say thank you so much for coming on my 750th episode tonight 6 times, and I really appreciate it. And continued success. And you have an open invite to come back on, and hopefully the next time we'll be able to talk about positive things happening with the Red Wings too.
Call me anytime. Happy to do it.
Thanks so much, Kevin. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, that concludes season 14, episode 35, overall 750 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by our friends at Barry Cullen Chevrolet dealership, located at 905 Woodlawn Row West in the Guelph Automall. Check out their website, barrycullen.com, for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, along with their great selection of all electric vehicles, EVs, Cadillac vehicles, and pickup trucks as well. You can call the dealership at 519-824-0210 or email them at info@barrycullen.com. I had to take my car in this afternoon to Barry Cullen Chevrolet dealership, maybe about 20 minutes to 5 before closing. I actually drove over a screw and it was in my tire, and I took it in there, and Taylor and Bella took care of me, and they fixed my tire. They patched it, repaired it. Everything's good. So I want to say thank you, especially to Taylor and Bella in the service department and mechanic, for helping me out with my vehicle as well. So another one of the reasons why I stay with Barry Cullen Chevrolet dealership, not just because of their quality products, but their great customer service, and they have good people working there. So a shout out to Taylor in the service department and Bella, a mechanic who fixed my tire and got the screw out and was able to patch it and all that as well. So thank you to both of them as well. And as we wrap up the show, guys, speaking of Barry Cullen Chevrolet right now, get a $25 ESSO and mobile gift card with the purchase of an oil change and an eligible vehicle health check. Offer valid from June 1st, 2026 to August 31st, 2026. You only got a few weeks left. Book your appointment now at Barry Cullen Chevrolet dealership. And as we wrap up the show, guys, my next live with CDP Sports Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by barrycullen.com. It's going to take place on Tuesday, August 18th at 7 p.m. Eastern with special guest Sina Sleem. Sina Sleem. She is a former Emmy award-winning TV news anchor and reporter. She is now serving as the regional manager of content strategy and development for marketing and corporate affairs at HC Healthcare. So I'm looking forward to speaking to Seema about her career in the media and transitioning over into HCA Healthcare as well. And again, if you're looking to adopt a pet or adopt a cat, check out the New Hope Animal Rescue Group, located at 4990 Jones Baseline Road in Guelph, Ontario. The best way to call to see a cat foster or adopt is to give them a call at 519-836-9780 or go to their website, New Hope Animal Rescue Group, New Hope Animal Rescue Guelph.ca, and you can see all their information there as well. And you can email them. Their email address is below, nhairrescueguelph@gmail.com. But your best bet is to give them a call at that number, 519-836-9780. And if you're in the Paisley Road area here in Guelph, check out Pet Value at 1005 Paisley Road. They have 3 cats right now. Peanut is on hold and could be going home in a week. And we have Wyatt and Raz. They are a bonded pair, and they've been down at New Hope since December. They are down at Pet Value right now. So if you're looking for a cat or a bonded pair, check out Raz and Wyatt down at the Pet Value at Paisley Road, 1005 Paisley Road. They do a wonderful job here as well. And also, as we wrap up the show, guys, I want to say thank you to Kevin Allen for coming on here today. You can follow him at DetroitHockeyNow.com, where he's a columnist, and he's also a beat reporter covering the Detroit Red Wings as well. So go onto their website, nhl.com/Red Wings, DetroitHockeyNow.com, and you can follow Kevin on Twitter X, by Kevin Allen as well. So thank you so much for Kevin coming on. He has covered the National Hockey League for over 50 years, and he knows the league as good as anybody as well. And as we wrap up this show, guys, again, if you're looking to adopt a pet, check out the Cambridge District Humane Society at 1650 Dunbar Road in Cambridge, Ontario. Telephone number 519-623-7722, extension 0, or visit their website, cambridgehumanesociety.org. All the animals and pets up for adoption, their profiles are on cambridgehumanesociety.org. And remember, at the Cambridge Humane Society, you can't buy happiness, but you can adopt it as well. And again, guys, I will be doing only one show next week. I'm taking a little bit of break. I've done probably in the last 10 days, 15 shows in the last 10 days. So I'm going to probably just do one show next week. Again, Tuesday, August 18th at 7 o'clock with Sina Sleem, a former Emmy award-winning TV news anchor and reporter, will be on our show. The Small Talk podcast with Marlene Sharp and myself, a monthly entertainment talk show, will be back on Tuesday, August 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 on the West Coast with two actresses from Los Angeles. Tune in for who those two are. And the next Argo Bells podcast show, episode 10 with Nick Small, will take place next week after the Argos Elks game this Saturday at 3 o'clock from Commonwealth Stadium as well. And again, I want to say thank you to Kevin Allen. Thank you to Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership for advertising on this show. And thank you, the audience watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, X, and Instagram, and also my audience on audio platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Good Pods, and wherever podcasts are available. And before we wrap this show up, guys, I'm going to play a little bit of an interview with Tiffany Sankey from King Realtor Company I did a couple weeks ago in Toronto, and we'll wrap this show up after this interview I did with Tiffany. And please remember to check out my YouTube channel, Chris Pomay Live with CDP Talk Show. Subscribe, like, and share. And I'm now down to 75 subscribers before I hit 1,000. Thank you so much. Here live in Milton at 740 Whitlock Road Avenue, and I have a realtor. Her name is Tiffany Sankey. Tiffany, just thoughts on these new condo buildings by Manami Homes.
Oh, Chris, I love them. These condos are beautiful. They've been made with the buyer in mind. We have lots of square footage, really livable spaces. Some units are coming with 2 parking spots. We have beautiful terrace, and we're backing onto a beautiful greenery. So this is definitely worth the buy, and prices have been slashed. For first-time buyers, you can get it with no tax, no HST on it. So we're looking at $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 off the price. So to me, it's a good deal.
And you can also rent too if you're not going to be here long term.
Absolutely. We do offer rentals, of course. You just have to contact your realtor or me.
How would you describe yourself as a realtor?
I would describe myself as very honest, trustworthy, and reliable. I pride myself in ensuring that all of my clients have the perfect experience. And I think that real estate is it's a right? You get the right to own a property, but not everybody might be there right now. So if you're renting, that's okay too. I believe in helping everybody, no matter where they are, and helping them build toward their goals.
How much have these units changed over the years with technology in these places?
Oh, you've seen the units have definitely changed. The buildings are becoming more technology advanced. We have the parcel lock boxes, the drop-offs. Some buildings have lockbox areas like this. Others, it's like a box on the wall and you have to put a code in. We're understanding that security and technology are very much so intertwined, and it makes life easier for you also. You don't have to worry about people stealing your mail from in front of your unit. And you can also get the security on your phone too through the app, One Valet, that Mattamy offers through this development. So we're definitely moving forward.
What's the first thing people look at when they go to these condo buildings? What's the first thing in the unit they're looking for?
It's definitely going to be the kitchen and the bathroom. The bathroom is a selling point for me. The kitchen is something that we use every day. It's a part of our lives. So you want to make sure that you have a kitchen that works for you. Mattamy has offered a lot of upgrades in these units that we're selling here. We have beautiful islands, nice finishes, and beautiful coloring as well. So we have some luxury here.
What are your thoughts on Mattamy Homes?
I love Mattamy. I love Mattamy. It's a reputable builder. They make it very easy to purchase. The buying process is very easy and straightforward. They deliver a beautiful inspection. The inspections are passing with flying colors, and they're very reliable. You know that when you're buying with Mattamy, you're getting a good deal.
And regardless if you're renting or owning, it's the advantages of getting a realtor are better than doing it on your own.
Absolutely. Realtors, just like any other profession, we have to go through extensive training and education. We're trained to understand what our clients' rights are, whether you're the landlord, the seller, the tenant, the buyer. We also want somebody who does this for a living because they know what to look out for and what you should be aware of. Also, you want to take the peace of mind from it too, right? Real estate transactions can be very stressful on the client. So your realtor's job is to really ease that stress off of you and guide you through the process.
Do you find the economy right now is shrinking with the cost of living and gas going up again?
I did notice that gas is going up again. My goodness. Yeah, the cost of living is really high right now. That's why the government, I believe, has decided to allow first time buyers to get their properties HST free when you do the new builds and the pre construction. I don't think the economy is shrinking though, because we have developments coming up all over the place. The Laurels is building right over there, which is another Mattamy development at the Crane.
Wow.
Yep, they're almost done.
And as for Milton, Milton has really grown over the years. Milton's now what, 175,000 people approximately with the development?
Yeah, we've definitely seen a quadruple in size in terms of the amount of people in Milton. Milton's becoming a hot spot because a lot of people don't want to have to deal with the traffic of downtown. And we have the GO train giving us access from all parts of Ontario. So you can get from Milton to downtown Toronto in 45 minutes with the GO train. So we're seeing a big boom, and we have schools, churches, places of worships, lots of shopping. Milton's a good place to go if you're looking for a good investment or it's starting your family.
Do you find Toronto's population is shrinking because of that?
Still, no, I don't. You know, Toronto seems like they have a never ending inventory of space. They just keep building things, building townhouses, building condo buildings, building detached homes. And everyone's still moving to Toronto. Toronto's a hot spot.
And finally, what's a fun fact about yourself as a realtor?
Fun fact about me is I speak 3 languages. I speak English, Spanish, and French. And I'm trying to integrate that into my real estate career. So if you know anybody who needs a realtor en français or en español, I'm your girl.
Is that common in nowadays, realtors being bilingual, and that's important too?
Yeah. I'm finding that with the economy growing and the rise in immigration, we're seeing more and more people that speak multiple languages in this industry. And it's good because it gives access to people in diversity.
And do you find more and more immigrants are able to afford these places?
Definitely, because immigrants are going to be considered first-time buyers. They don't have a mortgage in Canada. Oh, my client's calling me. Shoot.
We'll wrap this up in a minute anyways. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize. And finally, just where can everybody find you on social media and your website?
Well, you can find me on social media. My name is Sold with Tiff, Tiff. You can also hit me up on Facebook, Tiffany Sankey, or email me directly, and I'm on TikTok.
Well, thank you so much, Tiffany, for doing this interview. And thank you for showing these condo apartments to me as well today. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. You're very welcome, Chris. Always a pleasure.
That was Tiffany Sankey, real estate realtor with King Realtor Company in Toronto. So she serves the GTA. So if you're in the GTA area and you're looking for a home, there's nobody better than Tiffany Sankey from King Realtor Company as well. And that was courtesy of my YouTube channel. Again, Chris Palme Live with CDP Talk Show. I'm only 75 subscribers away from 1,000. So I want to say thank you to everyone for subscribing, watching my YouTube channel and also my YouTube Shorts channel. But if you haven't, please subscribe, like, and share, and check out all my content as well. And again, I want to say thank you to Kevin Allen for coming on tonight to talk some Detroit Red Wings with us, and a little bit about Steve Yzerman, Chris Illich, and also about Dylan Larkin as well. Kevin is one of the best guys covering the National Hockey League for 5 decades, and check him out on Detroit Hockey Now. And he's got a new column coming out tomorrow as well. So thank you to Kevin Allen. Thank you to Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership for being a part of this show. Please check them out for if you're looking for a new vehicle or a pre-owned vehicle. Check out Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership, again, located at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. That's it, everybody. I hope you enjoy the Major League Baseball action, the NFL preseason, the CFL is going on. It's a great time of the year for sports. And again, guys, I'm taking a few days off. I will be back live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. We'll be back next week, Tuesday, August 18th at 7 p.m. with special guest Sina Sleem, a former Emmy award-winning TV news anchor and reporter as well. I'm excited to have Sina on our show. So, and I got more guests coming up towards for the end of August as well. Have a great night, everybody. Have a great weekend. And again, I want to say thank you to Bella and Taylor from Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership again for helping me out with my vehicle today. Have a great evening, great weekend, everybody. And thanks again for watching and listening to Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, hosted by yours truly, Chris Palme, and brought to you by our friends at Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership in Guelph.